This is Tyler Schneider from Las Vegas Weekly, and this is my story from the news section in the May 28, 2026 issue. A Tale of Two Lakes. Southern Nevada confronts a challenging future after recent Colorado River water cuts further deplete Lake Mead's levels. Amid the worst regional drought the western United States has seen in 1,200 years, and in a year where Rocky Mountain snowpack levels also hit record lows, the Colorado River system is now barely over one-third of its total hydrological capacity, according to the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. As a result, water levels at Lake Mead and Lake Powell, the river's two largest reservoirs, are also depleting rapidly. In April, with Lake Powell on track to fall below 3,490 feet later this year, the minimum level at which it can generate power, the Bureau of Reclamation stepped in to announce emergency reductions to the amount of Colorado River water released from Lake Powell downstream to Lake Mead. In a statement, the Bureau of Reclamation noted that the decision was necessary to prevent issues including, quote, instability in regional power and water supplies for the upstream communities that depend on Lake Powell and Glen Canyon Dam. But the agency also acknowledged that it could simultaneously, quote, accelerate the downstream decline of Lake Mead, including a potential 40% reduction to Hoover Dam's hydropower generating capacity as early as this fall. In May 2026, the Bureau of Reclamation released a 24-month study projecting that Lake Mead could plummet to 1,021 feet by summer 2027, shattering its 2022 record low by more than 20 feet. For UNLV hydrology professor David Kramer, these developments amount to nothing short of a crisis. Quote, "It's a desperate time on the Colorado River. Lake Powell is in danger of losing its capacity to provide power because the power inlets are kind of high up in the Glen Canyon Dam, and this was one way to stave off total disaster," Kramer says. Impact on southern Nevada. The situation has been driven by what Kramer calls a record-low snow drought, meaning the Colorado River simply isn't getting anywhere near the water runoff the entire basin has come to depend on. The Bureau of Reclamation's May 2026 study projects the crucial April to July snowmelt runoff at just 13% of its historical average. Quote, "Our water doesn't come from rainfall. It pretty much comes from melted snowpack. And with climate change, the snow is melting much earlier," Kramer says. "We're just having a really bad year." For southern Nevadans who are worried about their future access to tap water, Kramer offers some level of reassurance, noting that Hoover Dam can draw water at deeper levels than the lake's current trajectory threatens. The Southern Nevada Water Authority, which is tasked with regulating and maintaining the valley's water supply, confirmed this through spokesperson Bronson Mack. Quote, "We invested as a community and built a deep water intake and low lake level pumping station at Lake Mead. Those two facilities secure our access to our water supply, regardless of what Lake Mead's elevation is," Mack says. For Kramer, the more immediate concern is electricity. Quote, "I think we're going to be moving down toward where we have to start thinking about power generation," he says. According to the Colorado River Commission of Nevada, the Silver State receives 24% of the total energy produced by Hoover Dam. NV Energy did not respond to a request for comment on how a disruption could impact service. The drought has also strained Hoover Dam's infrastructure, but some help arrived May 21st, when the Bureau of Reclamation and Nevada Governor Joe Lombardo announced a $52 million investment towards upgrades for Hoover Dam that include new wide-head turbines designed to operate at lower lake elevations. The investment came through funds unlocked by the Help Hoover Dam Act, bipartisan legislation led by Nevada U.S. Senator Catherine Cortez Masto and Representative Susie Lee that was signed into law in February. A need for compromise. The future of Hoover Dam's power generation capacity and the river system itself largely rests on the 7 basin state negotiators' ability to reach a new long-term agreement on how to share the Colorado River's water before the current deal expires at the end of 2026. But after already missing a federally mandated February deadline to establish a new plan, they remain at odds on how to proceed. The lower basin states of Arizona, California, and Nevada argue that the upper basin states of Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming should face mandatory cuts to their water allocations, while the upper basin states countered that they shouldn't have to because they already collectively use less than their allocated amounts. In May, the lower basin states submitted a proposal to the Bureau of Reclamation identifying more than 3.2 million acre-feet of water cutbacks through 2028. Nevada, which has the smallest allocation of all 7 states at just 300,000 acre-feet, or less than 2%, would lose 50,000 acre-feet through that plan, which still requires final approvals from the 3 states to move forward. Still, if the upper basin doesn't agree to additional cuts on their end before the new water year begins October 1st, the federal government will likely decide for everyone. The negotiators' inability to compromise represents the most pressing threat to an equilibrium that the states have maintained ever since they agreed to the first Colorado River Compact in 1922. Back then, Kramer says, then Secretary of Commerce and future President Herbert Hoover helped them craft a deal that was appropriate at the time. Unfortunately, they had no way of knowing just how large the population of those states would grow from there. Quote, back then, Hoover predicted that the population of the Colorado River Basin might quadruple. It was 457,000 people at the time, so that's 1.83 million. Well, right now, we're at 40 million people in the basin, and we obviously overallocated, Kramer says. A crucial summer. While Mack reiterates that Southern Nevada's drinking water isn't threatened by the cuts from Lake Powell to Lake Mead, he notes that Lake Mead's water levels were already experiencing a steep decline prior to the April 17th announcement. Quote, we've already seen a 7 to 8 foot drop in Lake Mead's elevation just over the past 6 weeks or so, he says. Lake Mead Mojave Adventures, a local outdoor recreation business that provides services like watercraft rentals, boat storage, and tours from Lake Mead's Calville Bay Resort Marina and Temple Bar Resort Marina, is well accustomed to these fluctuating water levels. Chad Taylor, the company's director of marketing and guest experience, says the recent cuts will certainly cause an added strain on operations. Quote, it's something that we plan and strategize for, Taylor says, but lowering the water levels, as they suggested, definitely creates some additional work for us. For each foot of elevation that Lake Mead loses, Taylor says the company's team of 10 will typically move a marina anywhere from 5 to 15 feet out. Quote, trajectory and topography play a huge role, and there's a lot of safety and compliance that has to happen, he says. Say the marina drops 5 feet. We could be moving out 40 or 50 feet from where we were. And we have over 180 acres underwater that have to move with it. It's a continuous process. Find this story and others online at LasVegasWeekly.com.